G'day, Michael.
And Wendy, hello.
And we're in the office at Ultimate HQ. Wanted to talk a little bit more about the trip, the 8-week trip we've just done, 14,000k. And I guess we should start at the beginning. You know, most good journeys start, I think, with good planning, good preparation.
We had the Brisbane show we planned.
Yeah, well, we were running a week late with getting away from Moruya and heading north. We're really keen on doing a ultimate muster, following that with spending some time with my mum, of course doing the Brisbane show. And we hadn't actually planned much beyond that, except we knew that in approximately 2 weeks after the Brisbane show,
we had to be in Darwin at the Darwin show.
So running a week late, we drove straight from Moruya straight to the Gold Coast to my mother's place. We did the Brisbane show and checked out everything up there, and then we headed west
to wherever.
And on our way west, we're going, how are we getting to Darwin? Which way? And that's when we posted a video asking you which way do you reckon we should go. And thank you very much for the feedback. We got lots of good feedback, didn't we? I've got to say the majority of you were saying Lawn Hill. So we're kind of planning on going to Lawn Hill, but by the time we got to Birdsville, we're thinking, well, gee, if we go to Lawn Hill, it's not a real test of an ultimate. But we figured, no, let's go the hardest possible way we can. So instead of turning right at Birdsville, we continued west, straight through, down the QAA line.
Over Big Red first.
Of course, over Big Red. And an interesting thing, you know, like the rig, that is the new Land Cruiser with the Nexus, hadn't been tested in sand dunes before, at least not by me and when. And so when we got from Birdsville out to the start of the Simpson, Big Red, we aired down to the tyre pressures that Joel Fleming of 4-wheel drive direct fame recommended. And he said, put the front and the trailer tyres down to about 10 psi and the rear vehicle tyres down to 15. Lowering tyre pressures to that right at the beginning of the trip. You know, I was a little bit surprised. Normally I would probably drop them down to 15 and 20, even 20 and 25. But I took Joel's advice here, and the first sand dune we went up, of course, Big Red, was a cakewalk, wasn't it? Just straight up, no hint of any loss of traction. Joel was pretty clear that it wasn't Big Red that's the most challenging in the desert. It's usually the second one. It is the second dune in. We gave it some herbs up there, found that because it was so dug up, we spent a little bit of time in the air instead of, you know, doing it nice and easy, so we slowed down after that.
Yep. And then the third dune. that was challenging, the third one.
Yep. And then after that, it was all downhill, pretty easy. And just a shout out to Joel Fleming. When we decided in Birdsville, like 24 hours before we wanted to do the Hay River track, we did a bit of research, and that research was because we still had internet access in Birdsville. So we looked at the Penny Wells video of when they did it with an ultimate a year before us, and that was immensely helpful. We also looked at some Pat Callahan content as well, which was very helpful. And then we went to the Tourist Bureau and we asked for a permit to do the Hay River track. And when we said that we wanted to leave tomorrow, they kind of laughed a little bit at that. Well, you should have got a permit 6 weeks ago. Oh no! And so we filled out the permit information application online,
sent it off.
But we also run 4-wheel drive direct. We run Joel Fleming, and Joel had a bit of a chuckle as well when we said 24 hours, but they had it organised, which was fantastic. So thank you very much, Joel and your team. We head off over Big Red and along the QAA line and turn right just near Popel's Corner and head up the Hay River track. But we did come across some groups of 4-wheel drives that weren't towing, and we did notice, and it might not have been them, it might have been a group before them, but we did notice the track was pretty well dug up on the northern side of the dunes heading up that way. We were pretty glad we weren't driving up that side. We've heard, and we say again and again, to do it right, do your preparation, do your planning, air down, slow down, drive to conditions, and check your gear regularly so that if there's something that's not quite right, if something's coming loose, something's too hot, you can adjust or tighten or fix it before it becomes a failure. And I've got to tell you, I hate fixing stuff, especially in the bush lane, in the dirt. I hate it. And so I work pretty hard at making sure that the whole rig is well looked after. And we didn't have a single repair. There was only one bolt that come loose, and that was the antenna mount. And it's a really good thing because it's right in front of it. So that was the start of it.
And you got breathalyzed on the QAA line.
Yes, we thought that was pretty funny.
Yes.
We heard on the two-way radios that there's copper up front breathalyzer pulling over vehicles and breathalyzing them, and this was like halfway between Big Red and Popel's Corner. So we thought that'd be pretty amusing. So we got some photos of that, and we met the Birdsville copper, Stefan. Hi, Stefan.
Hi.
They were out there because the Fink Desert Race had just finished, and there's heaps of people coming back from Fink across the French line and the QAA without permits and without sand flags. And I've got to say, a lot of the crew we saw going back might not have had permits or sand flags, but they certainly had a can of beer or a bottle of beer in their hand as they're driving along. I'd imagine that the breathalyzer was doing good business out there, keeping people safe, which is good. So where'd we go from there? Up the Hay River.
Up the Hay River. Saw some other people, not many. Saw some other cars.
We ran into a couple there with a Patriot and a Kimberly. They're from South Aussie.
Yep. Hi guys.
Yep. And it was really good to see a couple of Aussie-made quality camper trailers out there. Go Aussie-made. Whoa! We had a few nice camps up on the way north on the Hay River Track. Came out of the Hay River Track at what's the name of that place? On the Plenty Highway.
On the Plenty Highway, we got fuel.
Yeah, we got fuel, which
from
is
there.
Really good to be able to get that from the station. And we hung a left on the we hung a right on the Plenty Highway to go and get fuel, and then head west towards the Stewart Highway.
Yep.
And we sort of thought, well, we haven't been
almost
to Alice.
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't been to Alice at all. Wendy, not since you're a little kid.
Yep.
So we thought, let's go down to Alice and check it out.
We'll duck down there for a day or so.
Yeah, it was a couple of nights, which is really good.
So hi Alice Springs.
We didn't get to see much of it, but what we saw we really liked. And from there we bolted up to Darwin.
Had some great campsites on the way up to Darwin too.
We did.
We did.
Yeah.
That one you found through the paddocks and...
Well, I was looking at the maps, the HEMA map, and it says this area out to the left was a conservation area. So I thought, oh yeah, conservation usually means Crown, usually means public access. And then up around there, I saw this track going off to the left. So as I do, down this track on the left, we saw so many roadside stops full of caravans and RVs, and I just sort of thought, we don't want to stop in a gravel pit. So we whipped down this track, and there's a gate. I thought, oh well. Well,
so
that
we
makes
opened
sense.
the
It's
gate
either
and went
keep
through.
stock in or stock out, but there was no sign on the gate saying keep people out.
No.
So we went through and closed the gate again, of course, basically just following the GPS, heading closer towards this conservation area and a lake that was in there. So we were heading down this track and we're trying to get closer and closer to this lake so that we can camp. And what I thought might have been 5k in turned out to be about 25k in.
It was a fair distance in, yeah.
Yeah.
It was magic when we got there.
It was.
Yeah.
And that was our first time that we saw the brolgas as well. Bird life was just amazing. There's some great photos down there as well. And basically where we went ended up going through, there were no tracks. It was just floodplains and tall grass.
And we left it like that when we left.
Yeah, nothing but footprints.
Yep.
From there it was up to Darwin. Was there another camp on the way?
There was.
Into...
Oh, we stayed there a couple of times.
The creek. So the next camp on the way up to Darwin was Pine Creek.
Behind the pub.
Yeah, and that was kind
great.
of a campground. It gave us the opportunity to sort of just clean up a bit of gear before going into Darwin, and we had a great meal there. Lovely at the tavern
food.
At the pub.
Yep.
So good that when we left Darwin, we went back there And then the next night was in Darwin in a nice hotel.
Ready for the Darwin show.
Yep. While the camper was getting cleaned and the car was getting cleaned, and Dave was helping us. He was actually taking charge, making sure things were right for the Darwin show.
Hi, all you Darwin people who came to visit us at the Darwin show.
Yeah, come on, start buying more Ultimates. We come up there to see you. Time for you to come down and pick up your new Ultimate. So we left Darwin and we had our first night out because we didn't get away from Darwin till late. So we stopped at Pine Creek again.
Back at Pine Creek, yep.
Had another great meal in the pub there. And our destination was Broome.
With Broome.
So Broome to link up with Craig and Holly and the kids and their friends, and that's where the start of our Kimberly trip was intended. On the way to Broome, and we had to get there fairly quickly, so we basically turned right at Catherine and head towards Kununurra. First night out was at Turkey Creek.
Yep.
Got another name, the Aboriginal name for that community. And I believe that was an alcohol-free community, wasn't it?
It was.
And it was
great.
really nice.
Yep.
It was great. And from there, we continued west towards Broome. Our next stop was at the Ming
Caves.
Well, I mean, it was a great spot. We did a tour there.
And the tour guide was unreal.
Yeah.
He was great. Beautiful damper.
It was a little bit like Raiders of the Lost Ark sort of stuff, walking through these beautiful canyons that just opened up into beautiful shaded areas with water inside the caves and just magic. And from there we went to Kununurra. Didn't stop at Kununurra, did we?
Nope.
We kept heading out.
Yep.
Oh, the next night out I think was Dingo Springs.
Oh.
Oh, that was a bit of a rough camp, that one.
That was.
So, if you're travelling along there, scratch Dingo Springs and head down to the next one on the Fitzroy River. It's a fair bloody hike. Big distances. Pretty much only stopped from that point on at Horse Creek. Did we fuel up at Horse Creek? I think we went straight through Horse Creek and we filled up at Fitzroy Crossing.
Yep.
And at Fitzroy Crossing, there is the best cafe restaurant, the greatest coffee and really good food, and it's seemed a little bit out of place in the town, but good on it. And I recommend it to everyone. If you're going through Fitzroy Crossing, get your fuel by all means, but stop and fuel up yourselves with some good coffee and some good food at that great cafe. Well, I don't recall its name, but it doesn't really matter. It's in Fitzroy Crossing, you'll find
There's
it.
not many there.
So we pushed it through to Broome.
And lucky we did, because there was lots of shopping to be done and
Lots of preparation.
for the trip. So
Provisioning for how many people? 16 people. We got to Broome, must have been reasonably late in the afternoon, and basically just set the camper up in Craig and Holly's driveway. A few of the other crew were arriving at the same time.
So we met all the people we were going to travel with and some other people, and which is great. Had a great night.
And look, we love Broome. We haven't been there for a fair few years, but every time we go, we just love it. We didn't get a lot of time to get around the place, but we still had a good drive up Cable Beach.
Nice brekkie.
Look around the ports and not much more than that. Good walk around town. Then it was time to head off with Craig and Holly, the boys, and the rest of the crew on our Kimberly gorgeous trip.
Yes, it was.
I don't know how many gorges we saw. There's a lot.
Heaps.
And I think the first one we started with was down near Tunnel Creek, but it wasn't our first camp out. Our first camp out was pretty nice. I think I'm just thinking of one of my real highlights in the Kimberleys. I'm just trying to think of one. So there's so many highlights.
There is. Tunnel Creek was unreal. It was Tunnel Creek, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing going through there. There was quite a few people. Well, there was lots of people in the car park, wasn't there? Lots of cars, four-wheel drives everywhere. But that was pretty good.
I think probably, I mean, it was a fair old build-up because we'd seen quite a few great gorges on the way, but when we got to Backstein Creek and to the gorges out there, they were pretty amazing.
They were, and we had them all to ourselves too.
We did.
Yep. Not many people go out to Backstein Creek, so.
No, and the track out there, on the Munj Track, I mean, we'd heard so much about what a challenge it would be and how extreme four-wheel driving it was. So I guess there's a lot of anticipation there. Well, would our vehicle manage? Would we have breakages? You know, could we cope? Would we be recovering others? Who knows? Again, the simple practice of good preparation, airing down our tyres. Now, we were down to 20 psi on the rear tyres, not as soft as going through sandy deserts.
Yeah, we're going over rocks and that.
I think the most important thing here is, again, speed. You know, you've got to drive to conditions. Now, we're in a convoy of 5 vehicles, and you know, Crago had pretty much set some deadlines. We needed to be here tonight, we needed to be there tomorrow night, we need to be there the next day. And as anyone who's driven in larger groups, in convoys, will know that it takes a fair bit to get going, it takes a fair bit to stop. I personally felt that some of the target destinations meant that we had to travel a bit faster than what we were comfortable. Yeah, I don't know, is that part of getting older? But you know, when we're travelling solo, we travel at the pace that we feel comfortable at, and we stop a lot for photos and videos and just to appreciate where we are. So I think that on the way up, when we were heading from Broome through the different gorge country, then up onto Gibb River, then up onto the Munj Track, into Backstein Camp, it probably felt a bit fast for us.
Well, yeah, we only had the time window too, of opportunity to do it, and the group that was with us.
Oh, and we're booked into the camp at Backstein Creek as well. We didn't see too much damage. One of the vehicles trashed a tyre. There was a couple of quick winching operations. That's about it, really. So we did pretty good on the way in. On the way out, we actually came out faster, but didn't seem too bad. Again,
not as much photography going out either.
Well,
there were sections of it that were.
Well, they were pretty hard. I mean, the thing is, it's a long way in, but we only have to go a kilometre, 1,000 metres up the road here from Ultimate HQ, and we've got more extreme four-wheel drive up there that would be very challenged to be able to take, you know, one of our Ultimates up. Not because an Ultimate couldn't cope with it, but because the vehicle couldn't tow it there. But the Munj Track, it's a good day's driving to get from Mount Elizabeth Station to Backstein Creek, and in fact most people will camp on the way in, so they spread that trip over a day and a half.
Which we did on the way in, but coming back out we didn't. We did the whole lot.
One of the great things about the Kimberly trip and travelling with Craig and crew was great camaraderie and great food.
Heaps of food and heaps of drinks.
Maybe too many drinks. Oh, I didn't notice hangovers.
No, we all did well. And Backstein Creek, the camp there, where we were camped was, when rolling into there and how clean and how they've set up Backstein Creek's unreal. You know, you're sort of in a fairly warm place, and when you, even in the middle of winter, and you go in there and there's shade cloth sections for you to camp under, and tables, big nice bench tables.
Good, great fireplaces.
Great fireplaces.
And we even had running water.
Our own little toilet.
Long drop.
So, but everything beautiful and clean and well thought out.
I mean, it's a bush camp.
It's a bush camp.
But it's a great bush camp.
My highlight, I've got many highlights, but being with Crago and Holly and the boys and doing that trip, we'd planned to do that for 5 years. Been wanting to do it for 5 years, and hadn't been able to for many reasons. So doing that trip with our friends was great, and I thank them lots for reminding us to come on it and pestering us, because it was good fun. Other highlights, the Madigan, when we came back through the Madigan, just having the challenges that we both had to work through and work as a team and see some amazing places on the Madigan and just being out in our country that's just so special. It's not the rat race that, you know, we're used to. You're back to nature, you're back to having to do things that you forget to do when you're got all these modern appliances, and so lots of highlights. Lots of highlights.
Good being out of mobile range.
It was great. A bit scary when we got lost on the Madigan. Just a tiny bit. It was fun though. And can someone out there please tell us what that big sign saying "Go this way" is about?
The yellow sign saying Madigan Line this way.
Yeah, that we took and got us lost.
So you know, that's an interesting thing. You know, like you read, you research, you do trip preparation. In our case, this is what we're doing for the Madigan Line coming back from Alice to Birdsville. We knew it was remote. There was 750k between fuel spots. We went from Santa Teresa, or from Alice down to Santa Teresa.
Fueled up again.
Topped up.
Yep.
All of about 15 litres. Wasn't much, but we topped up there.
Yep.
And then we head down the old Downunder track.
Bins track, yep.
Or bins.
Yep.
And then onto the Madigan Line. We had calculated, or I'd done the calculations for fuel. We had the 130 litre fuel tank standard on the Land Cruiser, plus 4 jerry cans that I'd set up secure in the back of the canopy. So 210 litres all up. When we did the QAA and the Hay River track, our average consumption was about 23 litres to the 100. So I've felt fairly confident on allowing the same amount. Plus, of course, you know, a reasonable buffer of fuel of around 20% extra, you know, so 20% at 210, you know, 40 litres. When we got to the beginning of the Madigan Line, we passed Camp 1A. I still don't know why it's 1A instead of just one. We're following the HEMA maps, which are really good maps, and we put a lot of trust and a lot of faith in the HEMA map. But we're following the HEMA map. The turn off the main Madigan Line to Madigan Camp 2 and the Twin Hills shows that you can only go that far or so far up there, and then you have to turn around and come back down to the main road or the main track to get through to the first camp of the night, which we'd intended to be Camp 5. As we come down to this turn off to Camp 2, there's bright yellow sign saying Madigan Line this way, and we stopped and we looked at the map and said, but there's no way, if we go up there's no way we can get through to Camp 5, and we're not allowed to go through to Camp 3 and Camp 4. They're off limits. And camping out at Camp 2, the Twin Hills, is discouraged.
Yep.
So we thought we should keep going straight, but this sign is telling us this way.
And you don't see signs out there, you don't see much at all, and there's all of a sudden this sign was there.
So it seemed logical that we should follow the sign, and so we did, and we went out to Camp 2 and we figured, well, there are still tracks going through that way. So we followed a track that way past Twin Hills, trying to respect their wishes of not camping out there. Following this track, and it's low range and it's getting pretty thick, and we're following it further and further. And it's actually running parallel to the road that we actually wanted to be on, but it's not getting any closer.
And then it started getting late in the day as well.
Yep. And we figured we must be heading on the track towards Camps 3 and 4, and we thought, well, no, we're going to have to turn around and head back. And so, you know, low range, you know, about 20 kilometres each way out of our way. We ended up camping a few kilometres away from the Camp 2. We found another track the next morning that took us in the right direction towards the Madigan Line and Camp 5.
But we'd wasted a lot of fuel.
We had.
And that thank goodness we'd taken extra.
Yep. But nonetheless, I didn't let on to Wendy, but I was a little bit nervous about the amount of fuel that
I
we
noticed.
So keeping a close eye on the fuel, and when we started topping up the main tank with the jerry cans and keeping a close eye, because all our time out there on the Madigan Line, we hadn't seen a soul.
Or heard, even on the radios, every time we get to another sand dune, you know, not every time, but a lot of the times we'd radio through to if there was anyone else. And
anyone out there on the Madigan
Nah.
Line tuned in? Silence.
so 5 days.
So we kept coming through the Madigan Line, and I think I might have mentioned it before, probably sound like a broken record. Prepare, plan, air down, slow down, drive to conditions, and keep an eye on everything. Well, we were coming across the Madigan Line halfway through the season, so there'd been a lot of vehicles, a lot of convoys coming through before us. And when we got to a couple of the journals, the weatherproof books that we got to sign to say we're travelling through here, we could see that there's a couple groups, probably a day or so in front of us, and with multiple vehicles. And we hear people telling us all the time, they say, trailers shouldn't go out here, trailers shouldn't go there because they bugger the tracks up. Well, I've got to tell you, a journey such as this across the Madigan Line is not man versus nature. It's man versus the tracks that man has buggered up, because the vehicles, a lot of the time we've found, people fang it. They think that going faster up these sand dunes is the way to get over them, and they don't let their tyres down enough. Now, that might not have been the convoy in front of us or the convoy in front of them, but it's definitely people go up sand dunes and their vehicles axle hop, and it's like creating monster corrugations or sand moguls, and it makes it harder for the next people to come through. So what we were doing, I mean, we dropped our tyres down to 15 hot, you know, so that's like about 12 psi cold in the rear tyres, and down 7 or 8 psi in the other tyres, and engaging diff locks, so that instead of trying to go up these big sand dunes with sand moguls and axle hopping and bouncing and risking doing damage to our
Car and
rig,
camper.
we quite often would get out and smooth out the worst of the moguls with the shovels and boots, and then we'd drive up at a particular speed, low speed, that would not accentuate the existing moguls. So more often than not,
We were smoothing them out.
yeah, by the time we passed over those dunes, they were smoother than when we arrived.
And thank goodness, the ultimate, being the lightweight camper that it is, and the way it performs, the ultimate up those sand dunes, you know, taking a heavy camper up those sand dunes, you know, would have made things a lot worse. Our ultimate campers, they just perform beautifully, and they're built to do what we just did with our Nexus, our ultimate Nexus. It just loved it all, and it was just performed beautifully.
And one thing that I was doing regularly too with a laser temperature gauge that we've got is checking the temperatures of tyres, brakes, bearings on the vehicle and the camper, but also checking the temperature of the shock absorbers. And the shock absorbers on the camper and on the vehicle's maximum temperature would have been up around 60-65 degrees Celsius. The rear tyres on the Land Cruiser were up at around that sort of temperature as well. So well within their operating parameters, no risk of the shock absorbers fading or failing or seals being damaged by excessive temperature.
You don't want to be stuck in places like that. There's no NRMA that can just, you know, come out and save you. So you've got to save yourself.
Though I was fairly confident that if we did run out of juice, break down, get hopelessly bogged, whatever the case was, in the middle of the track, well, the next convoy coming along would have to help us not to get. They couldn't just drive around us. So there's the help is never too far away, but not requiring the help is the challenge.
Yes.
So we come across the Madigan Line, and it was very slow, very enjoyable, and we caught up to a convoy in front of us of Tasmanians, weren't they? I think they were.
Okay.
Really nice mob. We actually caught up to them at the old ruin, and then again they took off in front of us, and then we caught up to them in preparation to go up Big Red. and we went up Big Red before them.
Yep.
Just took the easy track up and over, not a challenge at all really. But there's multiple tracks there that people challenge themselves against. We're at the top watching them try to come up the harder ones, some of them successfully, some of them not. But I've got to tell you that most of them were doing that at a very fast rate, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
A mega momentum. I was tempted to do it. I wanted to unhook the ultimate and even do it with the ultimate on it. But Wendy's saying, no, because we're so low on fuel. So we didn't. But when we got into Birdsville and when we fueled up, we had 21 litres left.
We did.
Exactly 10% of our allowable fuel.
And we had lots of food left, lots of water left because of our preparation and taking extra for the conditions that you're going to go through. You've got to have your provisions.
Yeah, we're
averaging,
probably most days we're averaging 10 kilometres per hour. That's an average, so that means that a lot of the time we are travelling at that walking pace. The big challenge, like when you travel the QAA and the French line or the Rig Road across the Simpson, they're originally made by heavy machinery. Bulldozers went through there for mining purposes or whatever. So between the sand dunes, the tracks are pretty good.
Yep.
But there's never been a bulldozer or earth-moving gear that has done the Madigan Line. That is a track that's just gone along GPS coordinates, following where Madigan and his camels originally did back in 1939, I think.
1939, yeah.
And so these tracks have formed on the easiest way over the dunes, and then on the swales between the dunes, they've literally driven over the top of spinifex. And so the tracks are really bumpy. They're rough. And if you try to drive them too fast, again, your vehicle is in the air, your trailer's in the air. It's uncomfortable. Yeah, and you risk breaking things. So I got to say that I was getting, on the swales between the dunes, I was getting a little bit, not bored, but I'd had enough by the time I got to the end of the worst sections on the Madigan.
Yep.
It was a challenge. We used our max tracks numerous times and we shoveled numerous times.
Yep.
We didn't have the luxury of a sand anchor for winching. Would we have needed it? Well, we didn't.
We didn't.
You can take too much gear, so we've got a lot of good spares. We've got the right sort of tools to be able to use them. But we don't tend to take things, nor recommend them, like spare shock absorbers, for instance, or too many wheels and carcasses, because they start to add up a lot of weight. And so when you do have a list that's long, with the minimum, that's okay. But when it's this long, you've taken stuff to try to be prepared in case there's damage, but the weight that you're taking almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You took so much stuff with you, you ended up needing it.
Just buy an ultimate camper and live the dream and do some of the things we've done. It's lots of fun.
And we've hardly done it. Compared to what our customers are out there doing.
Yeah. Thanks for watching our 2018 Ultimate Adventure. Hopefully we'll keep doing more adventures for you to watch.
No, hopefully's.
No hopefully's?
Yep, and 2018's not over yet.
No.
Not by a long shot.
Where are we going next?
Yes, that's the challenge.
I'll go get my boots.
Might just be out in the back mountains here. But again, yes, thanks for watching the 2018 adventures of Michael and Wendy. This particular trip's been awesome and well needed.
Well needed.
Come back with our batteries charged. Also with new product design as well. There's nothing like using our product regularly to be able to help inspire improvements going forward. So thanks very much for watching Michael and Wendy's 2018 adventures in the Outback. If you enjoyed what you saw, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel, hitting the big button down below and even the notifications bell there, so we can bounce back to you every time we've got a new and interesting video to show you. Signing off from Michael
and Wendy.
Ultimate HQ.
See you soon.